Welcome to another Signal Conversation. Joining us here at Signal 360 is Hugh Evans, CEO, founder of Global Citizen. Thank you for being here, Hugh.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're very pleased. We know you've been a partner of P&G, and things are quite different now for Global Citizen, and they're different for all of us as we enter what feels like month eternity of a global pandemic. So I wanted to start because our audience may not even know what Global Citizen is. If you can give sort of a potted history of Global Citizen, how did it come about?
It really started for me when I was 14 years old. All my life, I've been passionate about achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. It started when I was in my first year of high school in Melbourne, Australia, where I'm from. And a lady came to our school assembly and spoke about how raising money for kids in the developing world could have a profound impact on their lives. And when you're that age, you get all enthusiastic. And I started raising money. And I was given the opportunity to go to the Philippines to see their work firsthand. And there was one night in the Philippines that impacted my life so profoundly, it changed my life forever, where we were taken to a slum in the center of Manila called Smoky Mountain. This is an entire community built on top of a rubbish dump, where the very infrastructure of this community revolves around scavenging. And so the children run after the garbage trucks and they try to get bits of scrap metal, piece of food, and things that they can recycle. And that night I was placed in the care of a kid my own age. We were both 14 at the time. His name is Sunny Boy. And where I'd come just from middle class Melbourne in Australia, he had tattoos on his forearm at the age of 14 years old because he was about to become his gang leader. And that was his form of initiation. And that night he took me to his house and we cooked this meal together with some food that I brought with me. But when it came time to go to sleep, we just cleared away the pots and pans on the ground. And we lay down, myself and Sunny Boy and the rest of his family, 7 of us in this long line. And I'll never ever forget lying there that night with the smell of rubbish all around us and cockroaches crawling around us. And, I didn't sleep, but I didn't sleep a wink. And I just lay awake thinking to myself, it really is pure chance that I was born where I was born and he was born into extreme poverty. It really is, as Warren Buffett called it, the ovarian lottery. And so fast forward many years as I was working on this, the G20 were coming through my hometown of Melbourne, Australia in 2006. And me and my mate Dan had this idea to run a small concert to try to encourage the G20 to increase foreign aid investment. And it suddenly exploded one day when I got a phone call from Bono, from U2 and Pearl Jam, who said they wanted to headline our show. And we thought it was a prank call, but sure enough, it was real. And they came on first on our stage and sang Neil Young's Rockin' in the Free World. And that night, 1 million Australians signed on to our campaign, and we managed to convince the Australian government to double foreign aid. We raised $6.2 billion in new investments for the poorest of the poor. And it was this huge achievement for the movement. But off the back of this, we got a phone call from the United Nations in New York, and they said they wanted to help us take our work all around the world. And so Global Citizen was born out of this idea that a movement of citizens are more powerful together, that a movement could create systemic lasting change. And we could call on world leaders, not just to commit, a small change here and there, but recognizing that extreme poverty and the challenges around climate change are more than a $350 billion a year challenge. They're not going to be solved through black tie gala dinners and charity events. We needed a movement. And that's why Global Citizen was built. And over the last several years, through the festivals we've hosted in Central Park alongside Procter & Gamble, right through to the movements that we've driven in South Africa focused on period poverty. All of these initiatives have now led world leaders to commit over $50 billion on Global Citizen stages. That's $50 billion that has gone to life-saving immunizations to help children survive beyond the age of 5 years old, or get more girls into school, or to make sure people are not suffering from malnutrition and hunger, or to make sure we address the issues of climate change and plastic abatement, or to make sure that we focus on gender equality and the empowerment of women. All of this money goes into funds that ultimately Global Citizen holds accountable to make sure that the dollars end up with those who need it most. And that's really what Global Citizen is all about. It's a worldwide movement of committed citizens who believe the power of their collective voice can create change and achieve a world free from extreme poverty, where we address climate change and where we reduce inequality for all.
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing story. I've attended Global Citizen in New York, and it is a different kind of an event. There's a core reason why it's different. Can you tell our audience what that is?
So we said from the outset that we didn't want to just produce the next Live Aid. We said that it's all great, when someone buys a $150 ticket, they come along to an event, but then they'll often forget about it afterwards. So we said we had to turn that model on its head. And so the way it works is that people can't buy a ticket to Global Citizen. They have to download the Global Citizen app to their phone, or they have to go onto the globalcitizen.org website and start taking action together. All of their actions earn them points, and they use those points to come to the Global Citizen Festival for free. So the 60,000 people who are there on the Great Lawn of Central Park have all earned their way in there, which means it's a entirely special audience because they've worked so hard. They've volunteered their time. They've sent tweets to world leaders to call on those world leaders to respond. They've signed petitions. They've made phone calls to members of Congress. They've done countless numbers of actions through all of the action journeys to get to the festival. And that's what makes Global Citizens so unique.
Yeah, indeed. And it is a powerful event. However, here we are, 6 months almost into a global pandemic where events like that no longer are possible. And it's an uncertain future in terms of when they will be possible again. How has your organization adapted to that reality?
So, Global Citizen, in response to the pandemic, decided that we wanted to make sure that we were of service to those who needed it most. So, a few days after the pandemic struck, we received a phone call from the head of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros, and he asked us if we would mobilize the Global Citizen community alongside our artist community to try to support frontline community health workers and get messages about social distancing, hand washing, and other messages out to the general public. So immediately we partnered with Coldplay, our long-term partner, and Chris Martin, their lead singer, launched One World Together at Home, which was an acoustic special he launched in his studio at his house. And he just started performing one day, and tens of thousands of people got involved. So the next day, John Legend decided to do it, then Charlie Puth, then all kinds of artists signed on. And then a week later, Lady Gaga said she wanted to work with us to curate a global special that Procter & Gamble was a huge partner of, to raise money to provide personal protective equipment for frontline community health workers. Together with Lady Gaga, we mobilized the private sector community alongside P&G's leadership. We also managed to get Sir Paul McCartney, incredible artists like Elton John, the Rolling Stones, all signed on. It ended up being broadcast all around the world and broke several Guinness World Records, but most importantly, raised close to $128 million to provide frontline community health workers with personal protective equipment. And I'm really proud to tell you that every single one of those dollars has already been sent to the front line to provide frontline community health workers with the personal protective equipment they need. So immediately after One World Together at Home, we received a phone call from the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and she asked us to work with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and with Bloomberg Philanthropies to try to encourage the G20 nations to invest in a COVID-19 vaccine. So we received the support from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who came on board as the host, together with Coldplay, Miley Cyrus, and incredible artists like Justin Bieber, who all committed to be part of the campaign. And they all called on the G20 nations to step up and invest in a COVID-19 vaccine. And more than $1 billion was ultimately raised from G20 nations, with a further $5.4 billion in loans and guarantees. And where this money is going to go, it's going to go to invest in vaccine development and distribution to ensure that a COVID-19 vaccine isn't just available to the wealthiest nations, but it's available to all communities, including communities of color that are often the first to be affected by COVID-19. And this campaign has really been critical because in response to this effort, we saw Canada step up and pledge $300 million. We saw the US government step up and pledge over $500 million. And all of this is going to invest in the candidates that are currently the front runners in providing vaccine safety and security once they're ultimately available in the coming 18 months.
That's pretty amazing. Those are big numbers. I'm curious. You have a new campaign coming up that I've heard about, and this will be coming out pretty much at the same time, this conversation. So can you tell me about Just Vote?
Yes. So Just Vote is a new nonpartisan Get Out the Vote campaign we're launching in partnership with Headcount, a leading voter registration nonprofit. And Just Vote is mobilizing support from artists, from corporations to give Americans the tools to use their voice in the upcoming US 2020 election. Because we believe that participating in democracy is a fundamental right, and it's critical for each eligible voter to check their voter registration status, to research the candidates running for office, and also measures on the ballot and ultimately vote. America's influence on the world, whether it comes to tackling pandemics or addressing climate change or pursuing opportunity for all, is fundamental to achieving a world free from extreme poverty and with less inequality. And so I'm thrilled to announce that Procter & Gamble has signed on as a campaign partner and will be playing a leadership role in supporting this effort. We know that nearly 100 million Americans who were eligible to vote in the 2016 presidential election sat out on election day. And so this campaign, if you want to go and check it out, you go to globalcitizen.org/vote. And we're encouraging people to check their voter registration status. Incredible artists have signed on to support, like Billie Eilish, incredible artists also like Taylor Swift, so many others who are donating incentives to encourage citizens around America to check their voter registration status. And this campaign will ultimately be a success if we can lower that statistic in 2020 and see more eligible people take part in the democratic process. And this is really why we've launched the Just Vote campaign.
I'm curious, you've mentioned during this conversation your work with P&G, and I know you work with a lot of other large companies. What do you see the role of large companies in this kind of a movement to be? And have you found that some of them are a little leery of being involved in social issues because politics has always been a third rail for large companies?
Well, at our core at Global Citizen, we really believe that you cannot solve major global challenges without global solutions, be that a pandemic, hunger, or equal access to education for everyone. And if we're to successfully tackle these challenges, we need the power of large corporations and their employees, because the private sector, has the supply chains to reach every last mile. Companies have a significant reach. They have enormous economic capital. They also influence governments and consumers alike. And they can also shift consumer sentiment, but they also respond to consumer sentiment. And many CEOs we find are eager to act. When we engage with a potential new partner, the very first thing we discuss is alignment around policy. Which of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals are you most passionate about? When we work with Procter & Gamble, we know P&G is so passionate about ensuring equality for all or equity for all, about ending period poverty, about making sure education is available to everyone, and also working on a sustainable environment. And these are critical issues that P&G is fighting for and also at the heart of Global Citizen's mission. And so we want an evidence-informed policy agenda. We want to respond to the partner's needs. And then we want to go out there and really focus on which campaigns with measurable goals and deliverables we can achieve together. And we haven't seen businesses shy away because these issues ultimately transcend politics. These issues are about human decency. Yes, we're calling on governments, but we're doing so in a nonpartisan way. We don't care whether you're conservative, whether you're liberal, whatever your political bent. We think that stopping a child dying for lack of a 30-cent immunization, or making sure a girl in school doesn't fall out of school due to her period, these aren't political issues. These are issues of human decency. And so we're finding that businesses are stepping up like never before. And companies like P&G that touch billions of people have the ability to use their scale and reach to address the world's challenges. And we're finding that is inspiring other companies to also step up. So in our work over the years with P&G, we've launched some campaigns that I'm so incredibly proud of, because we've seen that the P&G leadership has been willing to wear their values on their sleeves and understand the distinction between something that is policy and something that is political. Global Citizen will always fight for good policy. We're always going to do so in a nonpartisan way.
Thank you so much, Hugh, for joining us. And we wish Global Citizen, great success, because that would be our success. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Have a wonderful day.